We are on the last book of the Old Testament. 39 books. We will have finished 27 more to go before we are done with the entirety of an overview of the Bible. Today's book is Malachi. The author is Malachi, which means my messenger. No other details are given about Malachi. The dates can be approximately 450 BC. The key theme about Malachi is that the Jews, again, have become careless in their attitude towards God and how they treat him and how they respect him. So Malachi is prophesying a century after their return from exile, so 100 years after they've come back from this Babylonian captivity, and he's going to start chastising or correcting the Jews for offering lame and sick sacrifices. He talks about that in chapter 1, verse 8. He talks about how they were divorcing their wives to marry pagan women in chapter 2. And then he also talks about how they're failing to pay their tithes in chapter 3 and verse 8. So the Lord was angry with this attitude that we find in chapter 3, verse 14 of it's vain or it's empty to serve God. But he does promise to bless those who are obedient in chapter 4, verse 2. He says, "Unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings." So God was fed up with this attitude of, man, it's emptiness, it's vanity to serve the Lord. And so he was blessing those who would be obedient to him. One of the quotable verses, it's going to sound eerily similar to yesterday's, says, "Return unto me, and I will return unto you, says the Lord of hosts." Remember, yesterday it was, "Turn unto me, and I will turn unto you, says the Lord." So very similar in chapter 3, verse 7 here in Malachi. Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament. We talk about that, but it contains the final word from God for about 400 years. So after the last verse in Malachi, there is a 400-year silent period where God doesn't speak, where there's no prophecy, there's no anything, there's just silence. Now in Malachi chapter 3, verse 1, God promises, "I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord who you seek shall suddenly come to his temple." So there are two different points I want to make from this. Number one is God doesn't want these empty religious rituals. He doesn't want you coming to church just to mark it off on your list. He wants your obedient spirit and obedient heart to follow him, just to follow him because you love him and because of what he's done for you, not because of just, oh, I need to do this. But one of the big things about this book that rings true with me is so many times I want God to work on my time period. But remember Malachi and Matthew, there's 400 years between. God had a plan, he knew his purposes, and he knew his timing. We can take refuge in the fact that God knows his timing, he knows his purposes, and he knows his plan. The teen of the day today is Jada Corsi. Make sure you pray for her, that she would have a good week as she finishes up school this week. And I know she's got busy times ahead. So just pray that she has a good week and then a good rest of this month and things as she's going forward. Have a good day.